Welcome to Mind the Gap Virtual Summit. Today's topic is Create and Manage a Startup Gap Fund Program. My name is Jacob Johnson. I'm the founder of InnovaSource. We're an awareness firm that connects universities with high-tech companies and investors through direct relationship building and knowledge exchange. One of our initiatives, Mind the Gap, was founded in 2005. And what we do is we work with about 82 gap funding programs that exist today from around 51 universities and affiliated organizations, and collect and report on best practices, benchmarks, and other things that can support both current and aspiring gap fund managers. We also work at a national level through different association positions to advocate for the need for capital in the early stages of development, and specifically proof of concept and startup gap funding. And then finally, directly connect research universities promising proof of concept projects and startups to our network of investors and corporations. As part of this initiative, we launched the Mind the Gap Virtual Summit, which is a year-long look into different sorts of topics related to university-affiliated proof of concept and startup funding. In this event, we'll hear from Bob Creedon, the Managing Director of the Seed Fund at University of Virginia, and Jason Priso, the Director of the Innovation Fund at the University of Chicago. This video sample contains about 15 minutes of the hour and 20 minutes worth of content from the event. And we'll hear Jason talk a little bit about their full process, and then also how they're using students in advisory positions. We heard Bob talk a little bit about expectations from the fund and also some of the investment criteria. What we cover in the full event that's a little bit different from today is we'll actually talk about some stats and benchmarks from the full Mind the Gap report. This will include breakdowns of sources of funds, impact measures, and also use of funds. Some of the fund managers will talk about their full process review, how they went about raising the fund and how they plan to sustain the funds, some of the fund management and governance structures that they use, strategies for leveraging campus and external resources, the evaluation process and the investment criteria. And something important to everyone is how they're measuring and what they've realized in terms of impact and ROI. And then finally, at the end, we have a discussion period where we talk a little bit about success stories, best practices, and then also what the plans for these startup funds are for the future. So we hope you gain something from this video sample, and we know you'll gain something from the full event. If after you've reviewed this video sample, you want access to the full event, please click the link here within this video page, or also you can visit us at www.gapfunding.org or homepage at www.innovasource.com. Thanks and enjoy.
So I wanted to tell you a little bit about our process and what I think makes us a little bit different, and I'll be excited to see what you've set up at UVA. We're very robust in the processes we set up around diligence, because I think of the background of the University of Chicago and the professor that helped build this program from the ground up. So his name is Professor Scott Meadow. He was a venture investor for 30 years before coming back to teach at the Booth School of Business, where he teaches one of the most popular courses on venture investing. He has a very particular style of venture investing, which is pretty intensive. It's known to be one of the toughest classes on campus, requiring about 30 hours a week of homework. So, definitely not easy. I actually went through that class when I was a Booth student and was tapped on the shoulder when they decided to launch the fund by Professor Meadow. So we use that class as initial training for all of our associates, and then run a set of training in the particular verticals that we see the most of to help them get their feet wet. And then we set loose a team of 4 associates per deal that we move forward into diligence. So those 5 finalists to run essentially an 8-week diligence process where they turn over every possible stone. They talk to up to 30 people out in the marketplace, generally venture investors, industry experts, people from potentially competitors, to really understand the market application of the technology that we're looking at, and how far along, frankly, it has to be before anyone will actually invest. One of the challenges that we saw early on was that, we're still a small fund, right? $20 million is a reasonable size fund for a university, but in the grand scheme of things, especially for the industries that we tend to invest in, all our life sciences, that's not a lot of capital when we're cutting a $250,000 check into a drug development process. So what we're trying to understand is, how do we ensure that we're not necessarily funding a black hole where we cut a check but it didn't get you far enough along where anyone else is interested, so you either come back to us for capital or you simply you can't move forward any longer. So we spent a lot of time trying to understand what does that next person in the baton race need to see before they will pick it up and run with it. whether that's the next SBIR that lets you do additional work outside of the lab, or the angel investor or venture investor that's likely to cut a check when they see the data that you deliver. But as I mentioned earlier, we'll get 20 to 60 applications per cycle. It varies widely between fall and spring in any given year, but most recently I think we had 65 last spring and we had 30 this fall. We work through a reasonably robust initial process. We use some triage and screening, whereby the student associates actually do very quick one-page workups on each company in categories that we generally don't get good information in from the researchers to help us understand what they have. And then we have an internal proposal review committee where we meet with local investors, entrepreneurs, and industry experts that are either EIRs here at the university or friends of the program that help us then essentially pull down to the top 5, the ones that we think we have the most, that have the most promise, that are close enough to the marketplace where our money could make a difference, and where the people involved are really committed to building the actual company. Once we select our top 5, we move forward in the diligence process, which is entirely focused on, again, vetting the idea, but building towards this presentation day. So you can think of our presentation day akin to a startup demo day. If you've seen a Techstars demo day or a Y Combinator demo day, not too far from that. It's built on top of our New Venture Challenge process here at the Booth School of Business, where the management team gets time to actually pitch, essentially pitch their deal, right? What makes this technology really compelling? Why do they think it can have a big impact on the world? And what are the steps that they're proposing to take with the funds they're requesting? So they have 10 minutes to present at a banner event, which we hold here at the Polsky Exchange. It's our big co-working and incubator space. So anywhere from 300 to 400 people that in the audience, along with our 14-member external advisory committee. And you can think of them essentially as an investment committee. They are generally UChicago alumni, but sometimes just friends of the university that are industry experts in our core areas, along with venture investors that fly in from around the country and act as our investment committee. So they are essentially the audience to which that management team is presenting. They get 10 minutes to present, 10 minutes of Q&A with the advisory committee members, and each team presents back to back. And at the end of that session, we break and we move upstairs to a closed-door diligence session where then our 4-person associate teams then basically present their findings and their investment recommendation to that same committee. And at the end of which, that committee deliberates and makes their investment recommendation to me and our steering committee, who then works to deploy the capital. There's another question come in about universities raising from foundations or friends of universities. So we raise specifically from alumni, so I can't say anything necessarily about foundations. We have spoken with numerous foundations around our specific companies, however, in an attempt to connect those that had a direct, they were directly in their sweet spot, their focus area for follow-on funding. So we have not tried, or I don't think we've actually had any success looking at foundations to fund our particular fund. But for the company, yes, I think that is a useful construct after we deploy capital to work with them on a fundraising plan, both from foundations, private capital, SDRs, et cetera. So our associates, again, they spend 8 weeks, they generate a ton of content, but at the end of the day, what they're really trying to understand is there a real need for this particular technology? I'm sure this comes as no surprise to many people on the phone, but it's not always obvious that the thing that's been invented has a very clear application, and that that the application that the researcher thinks it has actually will resonate out in the marketplace. So you spend a lot of time talking to potential customers, potential users, investors, industry experts, people in drug development, to understand why might this fly, why might it not? What are the barriers? What has come before? What are the current set of options that a customer has to choose from, and where could this fit in? We try to vet whether or not the technology really could be an order of magnitude better than what already exists. Especially for those things that have a long development cycle, being only a few percentage points better is usually a non-starter. We dig into the team, but what we're trying to understand, frankly, is what holes can we help fill, and what is the longer-term talent plan, given how nascent these things are, and generally there's little to no business experience in most of our teams. And then lastly, as I mentioned before, critical to us is that we are a milestone-based fund, so we do our best to understand what's after us, and is it likely that with the money that we have available, you can actually get to that point and attract someone else's funding sign a license, be acquired, whatever the right next steps are. So personally, I spend those 8 weeks, aside from advising the student associates and giving them feedback on their work and connecting them to the marketplace, I spend at least an hour a week with each management team working on their presentation, trying to understand what the market is saying and helping them understand how to build a presentation that communicates that effectively with a large audience. Working with the associates to help them assess their intellectual property compared to what else already exists. Identifying some of the critical issues, right? Not all of those are solvable in our time frame, but they need to be prepared to discuss them and have an intelligent answer as to how they're going to address them, once they complete their proof of concept work. And then we spend a ton of time developing both technical development plans, which tends to be more in the hands of the researcher, but we try to bring, again, some market expertise there where possible. We'll also work, though, on a funding plan, right? What's that next set of dollars after us, and how does that align to your next set of goals you're going to have to accomplish if your proof of concept study goes well. And then, again, I mentioned talent plans. We will actually go as far as identifying both the gaps in their team for the next 18 to 24 months, but also identify specific individuals or archetypes of individuals that they should be thinking about adding.
From a strategy standpoint, we are looking at companies that are formed and based on IP that comes out of the university, and that's anywhere inside the university. Companies that are founded by UVA faculty, staff, students, clinicians, researchers, and that's so far, we haven't done any deals, but the pipeline that I'm looking at is pretty broad. I've got about 35 opportunities, if you will, to do it, and it's come from the healthcare system, about 40%, 40-50% from healthcare. We've also seen from the materials, school, from architecture, from engineering, from computer science, and actually from education school as well. So it's a pretty broad, diverse pipeline that we have representing all of the university. Over time, my guess is that it will probably be more healthcare from both a diagnostic, therapeutic, and IT standpoint. Probably also about 40% there. I'm guessing, 40% from engineering, computer science, and then another 10-15 from the non-engineering healthcare schools such as chemistry or physics and those kinds of things, and a lot from software as well. We're going to look at having a reserve, so we'll do an initial investment, and we will reserve for follow-on rounds, both to be protective of investment and also to take advantage of an opportunity. Right now, the reserve's a little bit high for what we're going to do, but at the beginning of the model, I intently put it high and have done this on all the funds that I've put together, and over time you will see that it will work itself out to probably maybe 1.5 to 2 times the initial investment. At the 2.5 reserve, you're looking at probably somewhere between 15, 20 potential investments over the lifetime of the fund, which is a 10-year lifetime. And I think, again, as the reserve changes and as we do different mix of deals where some will be, 100 or 50 and some will be 250 to start, you'll see that number probably change if experience tells me anything to 18 to 23 or 24. And one of the challenges here that we have with this fund is that it is an evergreen structure and a desire to have a return, but at the same time, the mission of accelerating innovation here at UVA would point us to doing some things that might be a little riskier than normal. So we've got to look at that, and that's just a challenge that we'll have to deal with. Given where we are in the food chain, doing it so early, return on investment. I've tried to set an expectation of 6 to 8 years. At Partners, I set one of 5 to 7, and fortunately, the first return started coming in about 5.5 years. So here, I think we're even a little earlier, and we won't have as much money to invest alongside of folks. So I'm saying 6 to 8. So then the question is, well, how do we measure that this thing's working? And I think it runs to, and I've had conversations with a number of folks that I think you look at, the syndicate investments, are you doing it with high-quality co-investors? Can you say that you're working with, the NEAs, with the Blue Run Ventures, with Lux Lumera, with, Flagship, those types of folks? I think putting a number in of attracting and leveraging external investment is certainly a way of success. If we can say we are leveraging, I think as everyone said, and certainly, Jason showed the success they've had there. Increasing deal flow. I think if we can see more coming into, we're part of the licensing and ventures group, so if we can see more disclosures, if we can see more startup companies coming out of those, I think it'll be a better thing for us. And if we can begin to attract, a strong team of mentors and some management folks here, be it on a full-time basis or part-time for some of the deals we're looking at until we can find someone full-time, I think that would be important as well. And then the economic piece of just, if we can show that, we will have an unrealized gain and increased valuation from when we invested, I think would be important too.